Merci, mon cher ami. Merci. Bonjour tout le monde. Ça fait plaisir d'être à London aujourd'hui. On vient d'arriver de Oakville. Écoutez, d'abord, on va être ici pendant les prochains jours pour parler des enjeux qui touchent les Canadiens. On sait que le coût de la vie, c'est l'enjeu prioritaire pour les gens. Le coût de la nourriture, entre autres. Le logement, mais aussi la transition énergétique verte qu'on est en train de voir, les investissements qu'on a accueillis. En parlant d'investissement, je suis sûr que vous avez vu le rapport du directeur parlementaire du budget. Et moi, je vous dirais que ça confirme que les investissements qu'on a réussi à tirer chez nous sont des bons investissements qui vont payer des dividendes pour des générations, voire les prochaines décennies. On se rappelle que le président de Volkswagen disait qu'on est au Canada pour les prochains 100 ans. Alors, tant mieux si le directeur parlementaire du budget valide un bon nombre des conclusions qu'on avait tirées. Évidemment, il considère seulement 8 de l'impact économique. Nous, on considère 100 mais on aura la chance de s'en parler. Listen, great to be in London. Just came here from Oakville. Some of you have seen yesterday, we were talking about the subway system in Toronto, making sure that folks, we deal with issues that impact them on their daily lives. Yesterday, making sure that by October 3rd, Canadians and Torontonians could have access to cell phone coverage in the subway. We'll be here for the next 3 days talking about things that really matter to Canadians, really around cost of living and the price of food in particular. Then we'll be talking about housing. We'll talk also about the green industrial transformation because I would say we have been able to attract significant investments and there's more to come. And today the PBO released a report which I welcome because basically it confirms that the deals that we've made are good deals for Canadians, that they're going to pay dividends for decades to come. And I'll be happy to take your questions so that we can dive into that.
Monsieur Champagne, vous êtes un ministre senior du gouvernement. Selon tous les sondages, ça va très mal actuellement pour votre parti, pour M. Trudeau. Il y a de la grogne dans le caucus. C'est quoi votre lecture et c'est quoi la solution à ça? Qu'est-ce que le gouvernement doit changer?
D'abord, je vous dirais, moi, j'ai passé l'été à rencontrer des gens. Vous savez, j'étais au Festival de Saint-Tite même le week-end dernier. L'enthousiasme des gens est là, mais certainement, il y a des enjeux importants. Les gens font face à des enjeux économiques importants. On parle du coût de la nourriture, l'inflation. Je pense que le message des Canadiens et des Canadiennes, c'est de se focaliser sur leurs enjeux. C'est exactement ce qu'on va faire dans les prochains jours ici à London. Et je pense que vous allez voir une équipe qui va arriver à Ottawa énergisée d'une certaine façon pour continuer à livrer parce qu'il y a une chose que les Canadiens ont appris, c'est quand ça va moins bien, ils ont besoin d'un gouvernement qui est là pour eux. Puis je pense qu'ils l'ont vu durant la pandémie.
Est-ce que le gouvernement doit modifier son approche au niveau de la communication, en gros?
On doit toujours s'adapter. On doit toujours s'adapter, évidemment, pour répondre aux besoins des gens. Mais moi, je pense que la meilleure stratégie, c'est la même que celle en 2015. Vous savez, en 2015, c'était de se focaliser clairement sur les enjeux qui touchent les gens. Et quand on est connecté sur les enjeux qui touchent les gens au quotidien, c'est comme ça qu'on réussit à gagner, j'allais dire, la confiance des Canadiens et des Canadiennes. C'est des moments plus difficiles, mais je pense, je vous dirais, que les Canadiens, M. Fillon, savent dans leur fort intérieur que quand ça va moins bien, ils savent à qui faire confiance. Puis ils nous ont vus comme équipe gouvernementale durant la pandémie où on était là pour justement les appuyer les entrepreneurs, les travailleurs, les travailleuses, les familles.
On the PBO report, there's a big discrepancy between the 20 years that the PBO says and 5 years the Prime Minister has said before. How come there's such a big gap?
Well, it's very simple. If you read the report, the PBO is only considering 8.6% of the economic impact. So obviously that drives the discrepancy. We've always said that what matters is to build the full ecosystem, that not only you have to look at the plant, but the full ecosystem. Not me saying it, but if you read the report, the Parliamentary Budget Officer himself says, I'm only considering 8.6% of the impact. So clearly, if you look at the rest of it, which is the vast majority, you come to a different number. You come to a much shorter payback. But what he confirms is that even in his case, considering less than 10% of the impact, he said those are good deals for Canadians because we're going to get our money within a number of years. And then we're going to reap dividends for what, 100 years? Those are the words of the Volkswagen CEO. So my point when I negotiate these arrangements for Canadians is always to make sure that we get more than what we put. And this is assuming, I would say, because as you know, our contribution is deeply conditional. This is assuming that the IRA in the United States will still be in place because as you know, the contribution of the federal government and provincial governments are subject to the IRA still being in place and not being repealed or modified.
You're talking about the cost of living, housing, all those kind of things. You're saying those are big issues in our life. Can you explain to Canadians why your government decided to give $28 billion in subsidies to American car companies instead of focusing on housing or other issues?
It's very simple. Well, very simple, because we need to generate revenues. When you're a government, you either tax or you generate revenues. When you make investments, Canadians understand that. They need to invest to generate revenue. And what the PBO said today, said, good, you've invested and you're going to get more than what you put. That's basic math that folks at home understand. Because in order to provide the social services and making sure we can build the infrastructure, that we can build Canada of the future, we need to have the revenues. And I think Canadians, my sense, they've told us this over the last few weeks, is they say, yes, we want to make sure you look at our issues at the end of the month and the end of the week, but at the same time, they want to make sure we build Canada of the future, that their children will be able to take generational opportunity. I always say there's a cost of inaction. Would we be more happy if these plants went to the United States? I think that we're building the infrastructure and the economy of the future.
Minister,
that's what people expect.
On that though, doesn't it weaken your argument that it is worth taxpayers' money when instead of it being a payoff in 5 years, it's a payoff in 20 years?
Well, like I said, if you read the report,
it says that you're very optimistic in your projections.
well, not me, the Trillium Institute, and if you look at these investments across the world, but what I would say is that even the director himself is saying, I'm only considering 8.6% of the impact.
But that's not my question. My question is it still value for Canadians tax?
100%.
The payoff is only in 20 years.
Well, listen, because you're considering only 10%, less than 10% of the value. What we said, the value is in the supply chain. The director himself says, by the way, he said, caveat, big caveat, he said it, I'm only looking at less than 10% of the economic value, which drive his number higher. When you look at the full value, which is in the value, is in the supply chain, is in the businesses, just look at the site of Volkswagen, 2/3 of the land is for their sub-suppliers. So he does not look into that. We're looking at the full economic value because that's what mattered to Canadians. And if you look at these plans for 100 years, even if you take his numbers, we would be reaping dividends for 80 years. That's a good deal. Tout à fait, tout à fait. Tout à fait, parce que nous, on se base sur du réel. Vous savez, ce n'est pas une analyse qui est théorique, c'est sur du réel, parce que quand vous regardez l'investissement, il a le droit à son opinion, mais ce que je vous dis, nous, c'est sur du réel, parce que si vous regardez l'usine de Volkswagen en Espagne, par exemple, vous savez que c'est un facteur habituellement 10. Donc, quand vous avez un investissement comme celui-là, puis vous voyez la preuve, vous n'avez pas besoin de le prendre de moi, mais regardez les investissements qui sont venus. La semaine dernière, on avait Volta qui est venu avec Solus, qui est venu à Granby. On est en train de bâtir tout un écosystème. Le Bloomberg disait qu'on a le deuxième écosystème le plus important au monde dans les batteries. Donc, ce qu'on est en train de bâtir, c'est de saisir des opportunités générationnelles. Puis en même temps, ce que le directeur parlementaire du budget dit aux Canadiens, bien, écoutez, vous allez en avoir pour votre argent, parce qu'une fois que ça va être payé, vous allez avoir des dividendes dans ce cas-là pendant les décennies à venir. Well, I would take it slightly differently than you take, because Canadians understand one thing, is that to provide services, either you tax or you generate revenues. Families at home understand that. They say, Minister, keep investing so you generate revenues. What the Parliamentary Budget Officer expressed today is that the investments we made will generate revenues in the coffer. If you look at Volkswagen, the analysis that was done is that over 30 years, you'd have from 200 to 400 billion in economic impact to Canada. That's money that we can reinvest. Canadians expect us to make investments to take bet in the future so that we can be part of the economy of the 21st century. I think this is not only responsible, but I would say, imagine the cost of inaction. Would we celebrate, you and I, today if these plants went south of the border? I think Canadians, when Volkswagen, when you're talking at St. Thomas, you're talking, what, 4,000 jobs? 3,000 to 4,000 jobs, perhaps 30,000 indirect jobs. You're changing the nature of the economy of the country. And I think that was confirmed by the PBO today.
Why do you think Canadians are so angry at your government?
Bien, j'espère qu'on va en avoir des discussions franches parce que ben moi, je vous dis, on doit toujours être à l'écoute de nos collègues du caucus parce que c'est important, parce que le caucus, vous savez, c'est une représentation des Canadiens et des Canadiennes dans les différentes régions du pays. Donc, être à l'écoute, de passer les prochains jours ensemble, je pense que c'est très important parce que ça va nous permettre en équipe de faire le point et de se focaliser sur les enjeux qui comptent pour les Canadiens et les Canadiennes. Et je vous dirais, en étant moi-même sur le terrain, en parlant aux gens, ce que les gens nous disent, c'est préoccupez-vous de nos enjeux. Les enjeux qui comptent pour les gens, c'est évidemment le coût de la vie, dont l'épicerie, le coût de la nourriture, le logement. Et finalement, moi, je pense aussi, les gens disent, bien, continuez d'investir parce qu'il faut s'assurer aussi que le Canada va être capable de prospérer dans le 21e siècle. Puis une rencontre comme celle-là, pendant plusieurs jours, ça nous permet de se rassembler, déterminer des priorités, arriver au Parlement frais et dispo, justement pour faire la bataille que les Canadiens s'attendent qu'on fasse pour eux. Bien, il y a du travail qui se fait, je pense qu'on l'a dit, durant le cabinet. Vous savez, l'enjeu du logement, ce n'est pas un enjeu qui se règle en claquant des doigts. C'est un enjeu où chacun a une part de responsabilité au niveau provincial, municipal. On doit travailler aussi avec les différents syndicats. On doit travailler avec l'industrie de la construction parce que c'est un enjeu national. On sait comment faire parce qu'on l'a vu que dans l'histoire, c'est déjà arrivé où on a besoin de faire j'allais dire que se serrer les coudes, de faire un enjeu national. C'est exactement ça qu'on est en train de parler pour régler cette question-là. Mais tout le monde est conscient à la maison que ce n'est pas un enjeu qu'on peut régler dans l'espace de quelques semaines.
Why do you think Canadians have turned against? Why do you think Canadians have so strongly turned against your government in December?
Well, I don't have the same reading because you know what? I see people and they tap me in the back and say, keep on going. So maybe my perspective is different than you have because I've met thousands of people over the weekend.
And they're all happy with you guys?
Well, listen, yeah, you should come with me. You'd be surprised, you know.
Really?
Yeah, they are.
So you don't see a problem right now?
Well, I just say that, you know, the perspective that what Canadians, I think, is going on in the country is that there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of things that people feel in their daily lives. And the one is about their budget, you know, their family budget. They see things are getting more expensive, and they're looking for government to help them. And that I understand. I see it all over my neighborhood. I see it in my community. But that being said, they also tell me, you're best placed to have our back because, you know, we saw it during the pandemic. You had our back. You help workers, you help families, you help children. So at the same time, they say there's a lot of things going on, but we trust that you can help us navigate to this time, which is a bit more difficult now. Hey, listen. Well, I can tell you, I mean, you're asking, I see the polls, but you know, polls are polls. I tend to deal with people on one-to-one and go. I was in Toronto yesterday. We're in London today. I was in Saint-Tite the weekend. Listen, I meet a lot of folks.
Of course you're saying thank you. We're talking about people who aren't getting
Well, I'm saying in Saint-Tite, I just had my credit card. I had no cash, so I was not inviting anyone for anything, and they were pretty nice, I must tell you. Well, that's a loaded question. I'll have to invite you to the announcement before I can answer that question. No, but I mean, listen, we can talk about the investments that have been made, but future investment, we'll see when these investments come, and I'll be more than happy to tell you the breakdown that you will see with respect to these investments. But, well, which investment are you talking about? I'm happy. Well, I would say there's not yet an EV battery plant in Quebec. So, but there's been other investments that we've been made in the ecosystem, and that's the point I was making to colleagues, that in one way, what we have seen, you know, Volkswagen was a catalyst in the country because once we have attracted Volkswagen, people say if it's good for Volkswagen, it's good for everyone. And by the way, so for folks that don't understand, this is deeply conditional. We've not sent any money to Volkswagen. They first have to build a plan of about $9 billion, and if and when they build a plan, and then they start production and they start selling batteries in a retroactive way, we'll look at their sales and then we'll be providing support, even in the case that the IRA needs to be in place. So what I'm saying is that these, as people has referred to these numbers, people need to understand that this is deeply conditional because there's only going to be production support if the IRA is in place and not repeal or reduce in any fashion. So what I'm saying to Canadians, and it's confirmed in the PBO report, those are good deals for people. Yeah. maybe the last one because Terry will be mad at me.
You've been very good in terms of getting results for Volkswagen. The question is, why isn't your government able to get results for people in Canada when it comes to affordable housing? This is a concern that you raised in Cabinet. People have been saying about this in terms of affordability for years even. And there doesn't appear to be leadership coming from your government. There's frustration. So there's action for corporations, no action for Canadians.
Well, it's action for workers because, you know, if you go to St. Thomas, if I bring you to Bécancour, you'd see the folks there, they're pretty happy because it's bringing...
When can you get a plan on housing?
I'll come to housing, but I just want to say when you say it's corporation, no, it's people. It's not corporation, it's people because if you go to St. Thomas, it's going to redefine the whole region. You go to Kingston here, it's going to redefine the whole region. This is thousands of jobs that people want on housing. I'll come to your question, don't worry. I'm old, but I remember even the question. But what I say is that in terms of housing, we need to take action. I think the federal government can play a leading role, but we need our partners as well to play their part in order that we can have significant and measurable impact, I would say, on housing. I think Canadians understand you can fix that in clicking your... Je vais prendre la dernière en français parce que sinon on va me... Écoutez, on verra. Je ne veux pas présumer de la suite de la rencontre qu'on aura. Vous savez, on vient d'arriver. Vous me prenez, je viens d'arriver, ça fait même pas... Ben là, ça fait 20 minutes qu'on passe ensemble, mais je venais d'arriver. Alors, je veux pas déjà présupposer de toutes les conclusions, mais on aura la chance de se parler ensemble, de définir le plan d'action. Puis je peux vous dire, on va avoir une rentrée parlementaire forte où on va être là pour les Canadiens parce qu'on les écoutait tout l'été et les gens nous ont dit prenez des mesures qui vont nous aider dans notre vie courante. C'est ça qu'on veut faire. Merci tout le monde. Merci tout le monde. Merci. It's not that I'm going for more questions, but I have to